So what you're seeing here, it looks to be that this virus has begun to mutate many times over, and it is starting to get pretty good at surviving and becoming more contagious, more deadly, as even more deadly than the one that it started out or began. And it's becoming more resistant, that they're fearing it could become more resistant to the vaccines. And that's the scary fear that I believe a lot of people have right now. And I was kind of wondering about it myself. I mean, this is one of many articles that talks about that. And I feel like they, as in the media, experts that have to do with the World Health Organization, and report back to whatever their decisions or conclusions are based upon science and maybe lab reports, data. Maybe they have statistical data. It could be a lot of things. How many people have received the vaccine, and if they've contracted it again, if they're able to fare well with the first dose, or, I've been hearing that the first dose is not good enough. If they get a vaccine, that they need the second dose. Then I've heard where people are having reactions to this vaccine. And then there's been protests recently at Dodger Stadium. There was protests about not getting the vaccine. There's also speculation that the vaccine could have such adverse effects that could possibly cause people's death. So this is really scary. So you're wondering, should I gamble on my life to get this COVID and die, or should I gamble on my life to get this vaccine and die, or get a really bad reaction, and who knows, could it lead to death anyway? Not very uh, good selection of choices in the matter of all of this. And so this article says that new clinical trials raise fears that the coronavirus is learning how to resist the vaccines. And so this is scary, just looking at this, because I feared that, maybe they already know and we're just learning late about what they already know. And so Emily Gartner, I may be desecrating your last name, but this is a writer of what is the paper LA Times. And so came across this article, and it was talking about the data that was showing that two COVID-19 vaccines are far less effective in South Africa than in other places that they were tested, had heightened fears that the coronavirus is quickly finding ways to elude the world's most powerful tools to contain it. And so this is an unfortunate situation. So it could possibly be that the vaccine is not what's killing people. It's that these variants that are coming out that are more highly contagious are the killers. And when people get the vaccine, it's not enough to really ward off this virus. And so I'm thinking it could be that. And then, when people do get the reactions or the allergic reactions, everybody's body is different. Some people may be able to deal with allergic reactions better than others. And if they already have previous histories of illness, it may exacerbate that. So it could be a number of things. So the U.S. company Novavax reported that this week that although its vaccine was nearly 90% effective in the clinical trial conducted in Britain, the figure fell to about 49%, which is a huge drop in South Africa, that nearly all the infections um, the company analyzed in South Africa involved B1351 variant that emerged there late last year and has spread to the US. So if it emerged last year, they already knew this and they didn't really say anything about it. They slowly have been saying things about it, and I guess it's because they're afraid to create the panic that actually it's too late. It's already a lot of panic and fear. So I guess they didn't want to create more panic, but how can you create something that's already happening? That's my opinion. So the United States, it has already spread, and at least to 30 other countries. And so we know that it has spread. So Johnson & Johnson, they announced on Friday that it has a new shot that's 72% effective against preventing a moderate or severe illness in the U.S. compared to 66% in Latin America and 57% in South Africa. So laboratory tests had suggested the vaccines authorized in the U.S., one by Pfizer and BioNTech, and others by Moderna and the National Institute of Health, trigger a smaller immune response to the South African variant. And so now there's evidence from tests in people that some variants are less vulnerable to certain vaccines. So from an evolutionary biology perspective, this is totally expected and anticipated. So Dr. Michael Mina, Harvard epidemiologist, but it never feels good to be validated on something so scary as this. Of course, so researchers once believed it would take several more months, even years, for the virus to develop resistance to vaccines. Well, it sounds like it doesn't take months or years. It's literally weeks, and maybe less than that. And so it looks like it's too late. So they said the speedy evolution is largely a result of the virus' unchecked spread. So more than 100 million people have been infected worldwide, and each of those infections is an opportunity for the virus to randomly mutate. So that's the unfortunate part of this. I don't know that anybody realizes the severity of this, but even getting the vaccine does not make you safe, is what this is reading, what I'm seeing into this. It does not make you 100% safe from getting sick. You might have some level of protection, but it's not a guarantee. So one early sign that this process was underway was a significant number of people who were contracting the coronavirus a second time. It appeared that the training of their immune system received during the first infection was failing to protect them from the new versions of the virus. So scientists at Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech worry that the same thing could happen with immunity induced by their vaccines as well. So this virus has sort of, a way of its own of coming around. These vaccines, it could build resistance to where the vaccines are not really going to help too much. So it's almost as if you don't get the vaccine, it's a risk. You get the vaccine, it's still a risk. And who knows, you might be like as if you were not ever vaccinated. And then you don't know what these vaccines may have in it that could cause you some kind of reaction, around this virus. It may exacerbate other health issues. So it's pretty scary to hear this. But it says in laboratories, they took several versions of the virus and exposed them to blood samples from a small number of people who had been vaccinated already. And so the neutralizing antibodies produced in response to Moderna's vaccine were equally effective against original coronavirus, the original one that started out, and the B.1.1.7 strain that emerged in the United Kingdom. But they were far, however, unfortunately, they were far less effective against the South African strain that has come out. So Pfizer's vaccine was only slightly less effective against the South African variant compared to the others. And so experts had cautioned that laboratory tests were an imperfect model for understanding immune response in people as well. So that might be another part in it, depending on people's bodies, what your capability is in terms of the immune response. So other parts of the immune system, such as T cells, might play a role in fighting a variant, and even neutralizing antibodies fall short. So this is said by Mark Lipstitch, a Sitch. He's a Harvard epidemiologist, and so that's why the Novavax trial, the first to test the interactions between variants and vaccines, is in the real world, was so concerning. So whether people who have been vaccinated get infected with a variant, that's the real proof in the pudding, said Dr. Otto Yang, an infectious disease researcher at UCLA. So Novavax cautioned that its South African study, which included about 4,400 patients, was too small to offer a precise measurement on the vaccine efficacy. So it's not a lot of people to say that this is, in other words, a good, a good fit, a good vaccine to fight against these variants, of course, I believe. So we would need a lot more evidence to show that. So the Johnson & Johnson result provided further evidence that the problem was serious. And that was probably from their research. So experts said that the weaker performance of the vaccine in South Africa, where it was tested in about 6,500 people, almost certainly was a result of the predominance of the variant circulating widely there. So researchers believe that it is more contagious than other variants as well, and that it had become more common in the South African region and elsewhere since the trial began in September. So researchers said variants were also likely to blame for the subpar showing of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in Latin America, where it was tested in more than 17,000 people: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. So the mutations of greatest concern are the spike protein on the surface of the virus, that variant, because of the current crop vaccines train the immune system to recognize that protein as well. So mutations there increase the likelihood the virus will slip by undetected. So Minna, a Harvard epidemiologist, likened the process to searching for a criminal and by memorizing I hope I said that right, by memorizing the appearance of only his nose and mouth. So when I saw that word criminal, at first this may prove sufficient, but the criminals gets a nose job. Investigators will wish they learned about his eyes, ears, and hair as well. So I believe this is sort of like a euphemism of how the virus learns to, not only it mutates, but it learns to get around these vaccines, so it becomes more efficient in infecting people and harder to get rid of. So Mena said a more diverse arsenal of vaccines employing a variety of approaches is needed. So what I would say, in my opinion, is that they need to keep studying, because when we first heard about all of this, they were saying, that the vaccines they had, it was supposed to be a program called Operation Warp Speed, and that's the problem, speed. And with what we're dealing with, they say, sometimes it takes years before they can actually find something that is suitable to combat certain diseases or viruses and things like that. And so this didn't seem like it took very many years. So I think that's number one issue. It was rushed, and we weren't told early on that this was going to be an issue as it is now, and it just spread, and it has mutated, and it is worse than ever before, and so many people are dying, so many more are dying, and going to die. Um, and so this is what is so scary about this whole thing. So in the meantime, Moderna has announced efforts to develop booster shots, okay, to add to its current two-shot regimen in order to fend off the South African variant. And so the company also plans to test whether a third shot of the original formula could help with other strains as well. So this is scary when you hear this kind of talk. I don't know that anybody has talked about this as much. Maybe they're assuming that people are looking at this, which I don't think they are because people are kind of burnt out on it. But to know this is good because now we know that pretty much it's out of control, and they're trying to really find other ways to make these vaccines more stronger. And in the process, you have all this speculation and skepticism, fear around it. So the U.S. reported its first known cases in South African variants Thursday in two people in South Carolina. And so the UK strain, which is also thought to be more contagious, is also circulating there. And so the briefing reports on Friday, Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Disease, said confirmation that more transmissible strains are now in the U.S. is a wake-up call that underscores the need to rapidly vaccinate Americans. So it's like a race against a clock of trying to beat the disease. And so vaccinating as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, is the key to slowing the ability of the virus to mutate, he said. So viruses cannot mutate if they cannot replicate. The U.S. is vaccinating at an average of 1.2 million people a day. And so I'm going to stop right here, and I will continue after I make this comment. I'm in the LA, California, LA region, South LA. I have not seen, like what they say, 1.2 million people are getting vaccinated a day. I believe they set up not only at Dodger Stadium, but they set up at some various sites, and they started with, I guess, healthcare workers, people who are like city workers, healthcare workers, like nurses, doctors, and then I believe it moved on to people 65 and older. And so I don't really see it moving fast enough. And from what I was hearing, it says they even have not even started vaccinating teachers, children. They have not really gotten to the general people. Um, and homeless people walking around. I don't know that, well, I haven't seen so many of them, but I've seen some in tents, but I think a lot of them are exposed. So it's just dangerous. It's like everywhere you look, there's so many dangers to this thing. I don't really see that this is moving fast enough to vaccinate as many people as they say it is. And it sounds like more of the high-profile popularity, people who are famous are getting vaccinated, people who are wealthy, people who, even I saw an article yesterday where people were coming from other areas and they weren't even supposed to be in those areas, and they were trying to cut in line to get a vaccine. And so I saw a crazy article yesterday where some people from Vancouver or Canada had went all the way to a region where these people were indigenous, and it was a couple that did this, and they basically tried to get this vaccine, and the vaccine in that region was supposed to specifically be for the indigenous population who is you know, underrepresented when it comes to health issues, and they only had a certain number of doses for those particular people. And I think the population that they had there was like 100, and here these two people were coming from way over from some other place to cut in line and take the shots of people who probably needed it the most. And so I believe a lot of that's been going on. people who are cutting in line basically, and they somehow they know of somebody's letting them in. I saw another crazy article where a student, and I believe that was out here in California, they worked for a laboratory that had the vaccines. He went and took some of the vials home and gave his friends shots. And so that could have been for people who probably really needed it. And then I've heard stuff about where they've had vaccine, where they've trashed it, where it's spoiled, because I believe it started out where it had to be in a certain temperature, but now they're making a new version of it where it can be in the refrigerator. So there's all kinds of things that I've been hearing. It's been crazy, and so there's also been people who have tried to pay money to get in first, um, first in line to get the vaccine, but it's supposed to be free. Um, there is a complete computer glitch where even elderly people, were having trouble signing on to go ahead and get the vaccine. They weren't able to even get in line to get an appointment to get the vaccine. So it's just been crazy. So that's, I think, has caused a lot of frustration. And then I've heard people getting the vaccine and dying. And so that has raised a lot of concerns as well. There's been some health care officials, people that are in health, that have refused to get the vaccine, which also raises eyebrows. And it makes people wonder, okay, so you guys are in that arena. You can easily get your vaccine shot, but you refuse to. What's going on? What's wrong with them? That's the question everybody's wondering. So, and some of the unexplained deaths. So too, learning that you have to sit and wait 15 minutes, so they can see if you're going to have an adverse reaction doesn't sit well with a lot of people either. So the U.S. is vaccinating, they claim, at one point, and 2 million people a day, but this is said by Dr. Rochelle Walensky, director of the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. But here in South LA, I don't see it being a lot of people getting vaccinated. Maybe I'm not really, but it just doesn't feel like it. And then too, I believe some people are not getting it because they rather get it, if they are gonna get it, they'd rather get it along with their family members. Because why would you get protected when your family members aren't? You're coming back to the house with your shot and they don't have shots. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, they stress that the vaccination must be accompanied by defensive tactics such as masking, social distance. Basically, you're back to square one, doing what you did before you even got the shot, until the case numbers are negligibly low. So if you think that you're going to simply vaccinate your way out of this, it's going to be a whack-a-mole, like a whack-a-mole. Susan Butler Wu, director of clinical microbiology in LA County USC Medical Center. An effective vaccinating campaign must eventually stretch around the world. And so far, it doesn't look like it's going well. That's my opinion. So if an impressive strain were to pop up next year, and for example, Brazil, even a fully vaccinated U.S. could be in danger. I think we're already there. The way this has sound so far, I'm just saying, sounds like, from what I've been seeing, it doesn't look like they're doing a great job with this warp speed and this let's get everybody vaccinated, and with all of the protests that are starting to happen. So Fauci called for bolstering government ability to detect new viral mutations. That might be something that you might be wanting to do, rather than, I think they should be proactive about trying to get people vaccinated, but then they should also look at, okay, is this safe, what they're using on people, and are people dying of this? Maybe they're willing to risk that, but other people wouldn't. I don't think anybody would get in line like, I'm willing to risk dying of a vaccination shot. Either way, it's a risk. So So it's just really scary. It just seems like you don't have very many choices in any of this. So it says genetic sequencing efforts have been fragmented, relying on academics and other groups to voluntarily upload their findings. The U.S. sequences of just 1% of the millions of positive samples collected during routine coronavirus testing were uh, shining a flashlight around in the dark, hoping that we spot the dangerous variants, said Anne Ramon, epidemiologist at UCLA. What we really need to do is flip on the lights. And so this story appeared originally in the LA Times, which I am an advocate with here in the LA Times and other periodicals, news and books and what have you. But I just found that this right here was pretty an eye opener. To me, what this is saying is that this thing is so bad that they've got all these different mutations of this virus. They're trying to rush to get everybody vaccinated, but they're kind of behind the clock on this. And the fear is that these variants have gotten so resistant, or could possibly, if they haven't already, get around these people who've already been vaccinated. So all you people who have been cutting in line and you've been, you think that just because you got your first shot or you got your second shot that you're safe. What I'm reading here, you're not safe. You can still catch COVID, and you can still, there's a chance that it may or may not work, the shot. So is what it's saying, and especially if you come in contact with the new variants that may be even more resistant to those vaccination shots that you get. So that is not good news at all. So this is what I was wondering, when they started saying, oh, there's a new strain. It just seems like because it spread so fast that it's rapidly mutating. That's what it feels like, to me. That it's already there and that it's taken off. It's just a matter of time that somebody moves that strain to the next person, and then the next 5, the next 10, the next 15, 20, 30, 100, 150, and so on. And, and there it goes. It just takes off. And so I don't know. I really don't know where this is going to lead, except it seems like more chaos, more protests, more deaths, more of what we're seeing already, and scratching the heads and people trying to work as patient and vigorously, how would you say, they're trying to be fast and efficient as possible. And they're still working, they're looking at all these different possibilities. Okay, how can we get something that is foolproof? But there's like, one of the WHO officials stated that it's opening the door for more to come, something worse. And I think maybe this is one of them, the different strains. But from what he was saying, Tedros, is that there are more things that could open up that can be just as deadly, if not even more so, and more contagious, that even medicine won't even stop it. And I think this is the world we're living in right now. And a lot of poverty, a lot of famine, a lot of sickness, a lot of unchecked diseases, a lot of greed that go along with it. Is a bad mix. So having said this, I'm gonna let this go. But I'll say this: in South LA, just this small city, it's not really small, this is a small world, I have noticed that more and more people are not working, or they're working like in bits and pieces. They're working like, I'm just kind of updating you at the end of what I've come up with. Some people are at work and their work closes, or they're working seasonal, or they're working part-time. They're just making it just trying to get by. Our moratorium is supposed to be extended to June. It was extended to February, to the end of February, but I believe it's extended to summer, and it could get extended more. But now they're trying to get a stimulus package, which there's bickering back and forth in the White House. Biden's trying to get the trillion, and the Republicans are trying to get 600 billion. So, which is not a surprise, but it's crazy. He's trying to get 1,400 out to most Americans, and what I've noticed is there's more food lines. I've seen food lines that are like crazy. It's so sad. These are people who had jobs. They were working regular. You had never seen this. It's like living in a country of famine all of a sudden. A post-apocalyptic type of thing where it hasn't gotten to the point of where people are out totally outdoors, but they're like one foot is in your house and one foot is on the street, is so to speak. You're in limbo, and that's you can feel it everywhere. People are on edge. There's more fear. You see people speeding. There's more violence. There's even people like they're taking desperate measures. They're doing things that they probably normally wouldn't do had they been working normally. They're doing jobs they probably normally wouldn't do. I was in a Rouse. I kid you not. There was a poor lady. She was there. She was just coughing, 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 coughing. And she was working the cash register. It was scary. And the first thing I could see was just the cough. She was constantly coughing. But I know the reason why she was there is probably that's the only money, that income that she gets. And so she's, trying to feed her family or whatever. I'm noticing a lot of Hispanic people that, people, friends of mine, that have said they know at least one or two people, or maybe more than two people, who have either gotten sick or they have died from COVID. It is sad. It is really sad. Those are the stories I'm hearing. Um, there are Black people that they've either gotten sick or they're so afraid, or they're at home shuttered because their job closed down. It's like survival mode. It's poverty status, which is not a good status to be in for anyone. And this is the crises that are happening here in the lower income communities. It's crazy, and it's like you'll see people fighting. Um, there's probably more things that you wouldn't normally see that are more obsessive. They're happening more regular now. Like if people were doing crime, they were doing less crime. They're doing more crime now. Because some of this is survival crime. Where they're going into the store and they're stealing food. Things like that, because they've run out of money, run out of resources. I'll see like long car lines where they're trying, churches and different food banks are trying to get together, and they're trying to organize things so they can help people feed their families. And as that runs out, you'll see, people looking like they just don't know what else to do. I talked to a friend the other day. She was asking me, she said, "Are you back for it?" And I was like, "No, not as of yet." And so we're both sort of in the same situation. We work at the same place. Um, it's crazy. It's just, you could see how it has changed dramatically. It's really sad. It's like, I had spoke to another friend. She said she actually caught the COVID, and she was really scared that she was going to die. And so I'm glad I had a chance to even talk to her. And so she's at home trying to recover, but she's still afraid because she already had health issues. And so these are the things that I don't know if the news, they every now and then they'll have stories, but when you live around people and people who are going through it, it's a different situation entirely. But I'm gonna let this go. This is very scary. And so, see this right here, this picture is just, it says a lot. The bodies, the refrigerated trucks. I even heard they were saying that they wanted the ship. I believe there's a ship to help if they needed to. I believe it was, I don't know if it was a naval ship where they help people who are dying of this disease. So anyway, I'm gonna let this go. But this doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look good at all. And yeah, I feel like now this is too a blame game as well. I think Gavin Newsom is taking a lot of heat. He didn't create the virus. I just want to say that. I know people are angry with him. They're like, but I heard his family's gotten threats. He's gotten, I believe, death threats. And you know, I look at it as in the beginning. You know, when Trump was in office and he knew that this was going to happen. He knew that this virus was coming, or it was possibly already here, and he kind of didn't say anything about it. You know, maybe if early on people were made aware of this a lot sooner, we probably would be a little bit more further ahead than we are now. I'm just saying. Um, but this certainly has created a lot of panic, and rightfully so. Thanks for listening.